Endnight asked players to give them questions relating to the future of Sons of the Forest. So, at least this Q&A is a great step in the correct direction. First up, let's get 2 of the questions out of the way. Players still are asking about the forest. I mean, hello, what? Can't believe players are actually asking about this still. But anyway, Endnight said they are currently focused on the Sons of the Forest, and if there are going to be any updates, they will do that at a later point. I personally don't think they will, but anyhow, you never know. Second, the other question that people keep on asking about is the infamous console question. Is it coming out on console? We would really be excited to bring the game to PlayStation and possibly Xbox in the early access period, but we do not currently have any firm plans. Right now, we want to just make this the best PC game we are able to. This looks like the same setup that we had with the Forest, where once they'd completed the Forest, then they looked at the console. Right, let's talk about Kelvin and Virginia. As we move into the mid and into the late game, will Virginia and Kelvin be any more useful? Endnight responded by saying that they have big plans for Kelvin and that they would like to give him more tasks to be able to complete. For example, to be able to construct a wall around the base, or being able to fortify and repair the base when needed. For Virginia, they said that they would like to plan on making her AI particularly more brave, so that where she had a weapon, and if she was killing a lot of mutants and cannibals, she would then be braver and would not be running away as much. Next, players wanted to know if there would be more lore added into the game and would the characters be more fleshed out. For example, the character that you play as, will there be more information on that particular person? The devs said that there will be lots more lore and a lot more to the story that will be added in. There will be extra cutscenes and new areas that will be working their way to flesh out the story. Apparently, a lot of players don't seem to think that there is enough gore or dismemberment. So, they asked the question, will we see improved gore and dismemberment mechanics? The devs responded by saying that it's not really on their list of things to do, but they are always looking on ways to improve the effects. Players wanted to know what happened to the various scrapped ideas of the game, such as Kelvin's original name of Robbie and the night vision goggles that we saw, the solar panels, the climbing axe and the battery charger, just to name a couple. Endnight responded by saying, lots of features are partially in and will be coming in future patches. Kelvin actually had a different name over the course of his development, and we eventually called him Zombie Boy during the development. However, Robbie is what we refer to him internally and finally settled on Kelvin. Does Endnight plan to add faster forms of transport? For example, there are quite a number of paths and roads in the game, and for this reason, some players have speculated that possibly there will be vehicles added later on. We do have what we think is a really cool idea for this, but we don't want to go into any details in case it isn't as fun as we think it might be, or just doesn't work as well as we think it will in the environment. Quite a few players have complained about cheating and griefing, people being able to access servers when they shouldn't be able to. Endnight says, this is always really a tricky thing. Our hope as developers is that people would just be nice. And unfortunately, this isn't what happens. We added the trusted system as a base tool to handle playing in public open servers. We'll also be looking into some ways to limit griefing risks and expand tools for hosts. So at least there's something coming along that line, because quite a few people have moaned about this problem. Now, this was my question that I asked. Many players are asking for features, but they may be already a work in progress. Could we be given a roadmap of features and additional content coming in the future that you can currently share? This will prevent many repeated requests and improve the overall community experience. We don't want to promise features that might not make it, but also like surprising players with cool stuff that they might not be expecting. We do read all the comments and feature requests and try to implement the best fitting ideas. Well, there's not much one can do except treat it the same as we treated it with the forest. Next question. Will there be an expansion on the crafting system? Currently what you can actually craft is very limited. Endnight responds by saying, there will likely be new items you can craft as we see what players want and what would improve the game. Now the next question I find very interesting, and I certainly do agree with this. How does Endnight plan to improve the pacing of the game? Players are finding the GPS system to be locating the entire story for them immediately instead of over time, which would give them more incentive to build and to explore. People have suggested possibly adding a compass and the ability to mark points of interest instead. So what they're saying over here is that because the points are marked on the GPS, you can see it in front of you. It's like, well, who cares about exploring? I mean, I didn't really explore that much except to look for a place to build my base. So by marking all the points on the GPS, you basically zone in onto those. And that is it. You don't really care about exploring this world, which is 4 times the size of the original The Forest map. Endnight responds, "We have a bunch of ideas we are currently discussing internally, but don't have a perfect solution. We do agree it's an issue and some players are just running all the way to their ending instead of living and existing in the world. So all you're doing is spending time crafting and building your base, and then you eventually decide to do the story and pop around to a few points of interest." Now, the next question also is an important one because I found this area lacking a lot. Will there be more building options? Currently, the freeform building, while very unique, is also very limited in what it can actually do, such as the ghost blueprints. Their response: there will be new ghosts added as well as improvements and extensions to the freeform system. That is good to know. I mean, some of those things were really obvious and glaring that they were missing from the actual system. Now, the next one is about the mutants. Does Endnight plan to add more enemies and mutants or change the ones currently within the game? Some players have expressed how little they see or how little variety they seem to have. We have at least one character that wasn't ready for the first launch, and there may be others that we will add over time, including variations of some of the current enemies. Now, I really hope they flesh this out some more, because as much as there are many cannibals, the mutants are certainly lacking. Moving on, cannibal camps are currently very small, and other than fighting the player, the cannibals don't actually do a lot when it comes to their own communities. Will there be an expansion of their camps added over time? We do have plans for this, adding more ambient actions for the cannibals to do around their villages, and also visual improvements such as more types of structures they can live in to give the different camps more variety. Right, next something that really bugged me as well. Does the team plan to add a robust crafting cooking system? Endnight responds, "We do have a prototype of a more advanced cooking system, and it will likely come into the game in the future patch once it is further developed. So this is good news. I do hope the cooking system is fleshed out. Right now I just spend most of my time eating raw fish. There's no reason to even cook them." So Endnight, will we see more wildlife such as bears and wolves? We don't currently plan on adding bears or wolves, but possibly other animals. Now, this is something that I'm really happy the devs are still on board with. The developers said that they wanted to do DLC and a workshop. Is the workshop still priority, and is DLC still planned post-launch? We should be able to talk about this further into the early access period. So I hope they don't crush this whole thing. A workshop would be great from a modding point of view. It'll be so nice to be able to just slot things in without having to go outside of Steam. Will we see more prefab buildings and stuff from the first game, or will everything be new? We're trying to add mostly new stuff, but if something that was in the first game makes sense and is fun, we are not opposed to adding it, which is really a good thing. Will the island and the environment be expanded upon to make it more challenging? Yes, please, developers, please make this game more difficult. Certainly with the lack of more mutants, and in general, the environment is really not that difficult. The developers only responded by saying that there would be updates during the early access period to the environment. They didn't really say it would be more difficult or more challenging. Finally, a question that the devs did not see coming, and it was actually a most asked question as well. Will the log sled make a return? Their response, this is one of the really cool things about early access. Internally, we didn't realize how many people really liked the log sled, and due to the number of bugs it had in the first game, we were not sure if it was worth putting back in or not. But in the last week since release, it's become clear that it is something that the players miss. I agree. Please add something along the lines of that back in. Right, that was the first Q&A since the release of Early Access. The game is not bad in its current release, and with the first update coming in a couple of days, you can only expect things to get better. Thanks for watching, everybody, and I will see you in the next one.